Hi everyone, welcome to video 3. This is Peter Ong of Rest Age Advisory. Welcome to our third video on Opportunity Unusual. What are some strategies and actions you can think about taking to survive and to thrive in this very difficult crisis situation? Today's topic is actually a very difficult one. Many of my clients, many of my friends find this to be a very difficult topic. Why is this the case? It's because for many of us, we have thinking blind spots. And to sense make confidently and accurately for your company, you must be aware of your thinking blind spots and you must be able to circumvent your thinking blind spots. You must then be able to frame your thinking in such a way which gets your troops aligned, gets them excited, gets them enthusiastic to get going. To begin today's conversation, let's start with a bit of a quotation. The quote is by Warren Buffett, someone whom I admire and whom I like very much. In 2001, Berkshire Hathaway, which Warren Buffett leads, is having a very bad year. And in his annual letter to his stakeholder, Warren Buffett wrote, "Predicting rain doesn't count, building arcs does." What happened? A lot of things that happened in 2001, Warren Buffett has predicted them. He could see them coming. However, he did not convert the thought to action. And it is not converting the thoughts to action that made Berkshire Hathaway have such a terrible year. In sense making, you not just want to take the data points, the information, and convert it into insight. You want to successfully frame those insights such that you could get your team, your core teams aligned, and you can get your company aligned such that they could build the arcs with enthusiasm, with energy, and with aligned spirit. It is in building those arcs that will help us succeed, not just in predicting the rain. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll share with you a framework which my company is very proud of. It's called the 6S framework, to sense making and to successful framing. Using this framework will give you a simple, robust solution that will prevent and protect any thinking blind spot which you may have. This framework will also help you successfully frame what's come out of your sense making such that you can get your troops to proceed in an aligned fashion. So I'll share with you a framework and then a process of how you could get sense making going, sense making done, such that you could address your town hall with a good plan to proceed ahead at the end of 4 weeks or so. So I'm going to share with you an intense 4-week process for sense making accurately and confidently. To do that successfully, I'm going to take a step back and guide you on some guiding principles to thinking. I'm 51 years old this year, and in my mid to late 30s, when I was starting in my executive coaching career, I met a girl, a young lady who burst into tears in front of me. And when I asked her why, in her words, she said, "Thinking is very difficult for me because my leaders are very strong in their thinking. Their thinking is just way too strong for me. So everything I propose, everything I write, I just cannot get past them. I cannot clear them and they throw my thinking back at me." Since that time, working with that young lady, I have refined my thoughts on how to have some guiding principles about thinking that help my clients and my friends appreciate thinking really quickly. This will then help you jump into the 6S model well. So let me give you some guiding principles for thinking. Many of us in a culture like Singapore, for example, are asked to think logically, rationally, and critically. Perhaps we have over-focused on this sort of thinking. Let's call this analytical thinking. Analytical thinking is stepping into the situation and taking a grasp of all the numbers out there, doing pros and cons, and sometimes thinking about the one right way to proceed. This thinking is important, but one cannot be just using this thinking alone to sense make. So metaphorically, for analytical thinking, think about the term step in. You step into the details and you are following the rabbit chase down the various pros and cons, now down the various numerics, the numbers. You have also learned perhaps in your career to think strategically, take a big picture, take a step back. So if we step into the details, we got to step back or we got to step out to get that holistic big picture view. Analytical and strategic thinking, LKY or Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who many of us have great respect for, calls it helicopter thinking. You go down, you drill down, and you have the ability to lift up. So I use the term, you step into the details and you step out to get that big picture. Finally, for some of us, our blind spot is thinking creatively, thinking laterally. And that's where some of my clients get a little bit confused when I share with them, don't step in and don't step back. Then they said, Pete, what do I do? I said, you look through with a kaleidoscope. When we look through with a kaleidoscope, ideas connect with one another and we see patterns, sometimes a little bit fantastical patterns which we have not thought of before. So to do sense making well, you need to step into the details, analytical thinking. You need to step out or you need to step back, strategic thinking. And you need to don't step in, don't step back. You need to look through a kaleidoscope, thinking laterally or thinking creatively. When you're able to hone your thinking this way, just like some of us hone our muscles in bodybuilding, your mind becomes a strong instrument that will help you get through a lot of difficult situations. Let's now jump into the 6S model, which Rested Edge Advisory uses to teach our clients on sense making and successful framing. Along the way, I'll try to give you examples of how some of my clients are thinking around their situations. The first S stands for situation. Don't call it a problem. If you call it a problem, you might jump right into problem solving mode. And problem solving mode has a blind spot. Usually, it also does not inspire. Think about it as a situation. What's the situation which you want to sense make about? And here in step 1, the first S situation, you want to think about common variables and non-common or non-obvious variables. Let's take an example. If you run a retail shop, a common variable might be the rental cost of your retail outlets, where you are hemorrhaging costs. You are thinking about, I've got so many outlets. What's the rental cost of my retail outlets? A not so obvious variable might be the rental cost of your warehouse space and the shelf life of the goods which you have to sell, and if you don't get them sold, you have to heavily discount them later. There's also a cost to that. So in the situation, the first S, you want to think about all variables out there, obvious and non-obvious. The second S is solution. Once you think about situation, you want to jump right in, use analytical, strategic, and lateral thinking to think about the solution. In video number 1, I invested quite some time to talk about a dual strategy. Remember that? Dual strategy using the metaphor of a hamburger. If you think about performance, you must also think about growth. You think about manage, you must also think about lead. You think about survive, you must also think about transform. So if we think about dual strategy, your solution will then help you not just protect your current, but it is aligned and in terms alongside the future. You will be not doing actions that are incoherent between the current and the future. So your solution must be dual pronged, whilst the present makes it sound like it's a lot more important. They are probably equally important. So when you think about the situation, you must think about a solution that has a dual strategy. The third S is, what does success look like when the solutions put in? If you think about KPIs, you might overly measure and you have, strategic, operational, you have 20, 25 KPIs which nobody could focus on. But if you think about the 2 or 3 things that are most important for you to tell you that success is there, I think that's the most important. And if you have little time to frame your sense making to your team, you don't want to inundate them with 10, 20 KPIs. What are the 2 or 3 things that tell you what does success look like? The next S is actually the stakeholders. If you think about current situation, you have stakeholders. The key ones probably would be your customers and your employees. Let me share with you an example of a company that has sense-made pretty well, and I think they have put in a dual strategy solution. This company is in the UK, and they make bespoke eyewear, they make bespoke leather shoes, they make bespoke products for the discerning individual. And when they think about their stakeholders and they sense make, they realize that one of their key stakeholders are their craftsmen. The craftsmen who will be out of a job if there is no business. So they decided to sell everything at cost for the foreseeable future. Prices drop 40, 45, 50% because it's now sold at no margin, only at cost. But when you do that, customers get engaged because I've been buying from you for a long time. Now I get to experience the craftsmanship still at just raw cost. And their employees, their craftsmen, continue to get gainfully employed. They don't get anxious. They don't get afraid that they'll lose their jobs. Something like that not only will help this company sustain in the next 30, 60, 90 days, it will give them engaged customers and a loyal, engaged workforce that will help them thrive into the future. So that's a good example, I feel, of a strategy in the near term that has also long-term dual strategy benefits. So step number 4 is to think about all the stakeholders that are important for you, for your solution. And step number 5 is what are the key steps you will take. This then brings us to step number 6. The 6S is called the strategy for smooth implementation. Here we are talking about what is the strategy to get the next steps out beautifully and nicely. If you are able to do that, then you have taken the sense making of a situation, you have looked at obvious and non-obvious variables, you have considered the solution from a dual strategy standpoint, you have also now looked at what are the 1 or 2 or 3 things that you can use to measure what the success look like when the solutions bunked in. Step number 4 helps you look at the stakeholders. Step number 5 helps you look at the steps. And step number 6, the number 6S, help you look at the strategy for smooth implementation. If you use something like this and you let your core team use a framework like this and your core teams, you can get everyone to present their thinking, their sense-making thinking to you successfully framed in 10 minutes or less. Some of my experienced clients using this framework, they are able to go to their boards, able to go to their senior management to present a difficult topic in 6 minutes or less because we use 1 minute for one of the S. So I hope this framework is something that you can use. This is really a deep secret of the Rest Age Advisory. It was created on year 1 when I found many of my clients struggling with thinking about thinking, with sense making, with successfully framing their solutions to get their teams to build arcs. So it's been 10 years going. It is a very strong framework. Now let me share with you a process which you can use, and it's a process which I'm guiding one of my clients in China through right now, which you can use to sense make powerfully across the entire company in 4 weeks or so. If you take the 6S process that I shared with you just now and you use 1 week to sense make for yourself and you frame something which you can bring to your core team, you can then give your core team guidance to use the same process, to repeat the same process in week 2. So in week 2, your core team comes back to you and they present 6 to 10 minutes for each core team member to share with you their thinking. Then in week 3, you have your core team bring in their core team members, and core team by core team, they are now sense making using this exact 6S framework. So week number 3, the teams go through many virtual meetings. They are talking and talking. And the end of week 3, the core teams with their leaders now present to you as the leader of this business enterprise that you are running. If you are using a Zoom or you're using any of the video conferencing software, you could record the core teams presenting back to you 6 to 10 minutes per team using the 6S model. Then at the end of week 3, after they have presented to you, I would suggest for you to take about 2 to 3 days to think deeply, broadly, and richly. Again, when I teach thinking, sometimes my clients say, Pete, thinking is thinking. What's about thinking deeply, broadly, and richly? But many people have done that. Albert Einstein took long walks, and the long walks helped him think deeply, richly, and broadly. A lot of people took long walks which helped them in their thinking process. For me, that's part of my weekend routine. Hopefully after COVID-19 has passed through, I can do more and more of that. When we are thinking deeply, broadly, and richly, for example, when you're digesting all of your core team's input, you want to use what we call conscious and unconscious thinking. And you want to be both a problem solver and a creative thinker. You want to protect all your thinking blind spots, and then you now apply the 6S model one more time. At the beginning of week 4, in the middle of week 4, and you are now having a very clear, concise message which you can successfully frame to the entire of your company, to all of your troops, where in a virtual town hall, you address them and say, this is our situation, our solution from a dual strategy standpoint looks like this. These are the 2 or 3 things that we will know that we have achieved success on a near-term and on a long-term basis. The stakeholders that are involved would be this, the steps we'll take would be this, and the strategy for smooth implementation would be something like this. If you use the 6S model to sense make and to successfully frame, you can get your town hall message. You can predict the rain and align your troops to build the arcs in 10 minutes or less. I think that's going to be quite useful for you. So today, we have talked about how to sense make accurately and confidently. And if we talk about thinking, we can't help but mention Albert Einstein. So I'm going to end off today's session with 2 quotations of Albert Einstein, which I really like. The first one is linked very much to our situation now. He says, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. Sincerely, I believe this. Many of my clients know that I'm an optimist, but I'm an optimist first and a realist next. And I use both optimism, realism, stepping in, stepping back, looking through a kaleidoscope, conscious, unconscious thinking, problem solver, creative thinker. I use all of those to find the opportunity within the difficulty. I hope using what you have learned today, you can approximate to some of that, and you can use that to guide your company along. Albert Einstein also says we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I hope that has given you an inspiration to do leaps and bounds on your thinking as you do this sense-making activity accurately and confidently. If this video has been helpful for you, which I hope it is, if you can like it and share it with your friends, then more people will get support from this video. Our next topic, let me whet your appetite to anticipate the next topic. If now your troops are building the arcs, they are aligned, they are eager, they are enthusiastic to build the arcs, then you want your troops to be having energy levels and engagement levels as high as you can. I call this vitamin E as a short form. but you want the vitamin E levels of your staff, of your leaders, to be as high as it can be. So our next topic next week, to be released next week, is on first things first. How do we keep energy and engagement levels, vitamin E levels high amongst your leaders, amongst their core teams, and amongst your company? So thank you very much. I hope today's video has been helpful for you. Do continue to journey with me on video 4 on how to keep vitamin E levels high for your core team, core team, and your company. Thank you very much. See you next week.